Well, what they were trying to do while we were there was, instead of the planned protest or march of what was expected to be hundreds of thousands of people, in fact, what they were trying to do was link hands to hold a human chain from the Place de la Republique to the La Nation, about a kilometer worth of street, and they were going to do that on the sidewalks. What actually happened was that human chain lasted a very short while, and police came to the square there and blocked off some of the roads. Some of the police were wearing riot gear, in fact. And at that stage, some of those people who were marching along the route of the human chain started coming into the square and started marching, which, as you mentioned, is something that has been banned since the attacks because France is under a state of emergency. And so those marches became bigger and bigger, and at one point there was a face-to-face clash with the police. As you mentioned, we were there when that was just starting. A tense crowd pushing in where the police were. The police obviously just as adamant to ensure that there is not going to be a march, and that is when the tear gas was deployed against the marchers. I would say there were maybe a few thousand people in the square in total, most of whom, we met many of them, most of whom had come because, despite the fact that there was a ban on marches, still wanted their voice heard. And they'd come from all over Europe and other places, and as far as Canada as well, Michael.
So this obviously happening a day before the official agenda kicks off in Paris for the summit. Let's talk about the summit itself. What are leaders hoping to achieve in the days ahead, Nahlah?
Well, Michael, nothing less than an agreement that 190 countries are willing to sign up to. So it's not an easy task. And the agreement exactly is to ensure that they all reduce their emissions to meet a target of not allowing global warming to be more than 2 degrees Celsius. And so that in itself is a problem and a difficult one. The optimism, though, Michael, that we're hearing around here is because a lot of those nations are coming to the conference with their targets already set. They have worked out a plan for their nations of how to reduce their own emissions. The other reason for optimism is that all the world leaders are actually here at the beginning of the summit. In previous summits, that hasn't been the case. Sometimes they've come in at the end when it's sort of a marathon of negotiations. So those reasons, optimism, obviously, but also concern. Certainly, we heard this among the protesters, is that despite this summit, and even if it were perfectly successful, scientists are saying it may still not be enough to prevent dangerous global warming. And so the push here is not only for the agreement, but also to provide the money and the funding and the support for new technologies and other ways of trying to improve the situation with climate change.
The CBC's Nahlah in Paris.